What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I apologize for the lack of recent uploads, but The Last of Us 2 came out about a week or so ago, and yeah, that's where I've been at for that entire period. I've basically been playing that for hours a day, but that's beside the point. There are two things that I love the most in this world, and those things are GMing for Dungeons & Dragons and video games. And this video is something that I've wanted to do on this channel for a very long time. However, I did not know at what point to do it or how to do it. But after playing this game, I decided that I want to officially start this now, and I'm going to call it the MetaMagix Monster Manual, MMM for short. And what I want to do with this series is take monsters or creatures from all of my favorite and your favorite franchises and create unique homebrew encounters or stat blocks for these creatures and give them out to you for free. So I figured, what better way to kick off this new series than with what is probably my favorite game of all time and one of my favorite monsters in games of all time, the Clicker from The Last of Us. The first iteration of the Clicker was introduced all the way back in 2013 in the first Last of Us, and it is described as the third stage of a cordyceps brain infection, which involved a fungus getting inside the human body and slowly killing the host and mutating them. In the game world, there was no known cure for the cordyceps infection, except for a vaccine that was only thought possible to exist by killing and dissecting the main protagonist of the game's brain, Ellie. Clickers have no eyesight and only gather their surroundings from the use of their clicking sounds via echolocation.
Ellie.
The fungal plates that grow around the host's body serve as a quite hard carapace to get through. And as such, direct assaults typically have a quite low success rate. However, clickers have also been shown to be quite weak to fire in the form of Molotov cocktails seen in the game. So in trying to maintain the overall bleak theme of the game as well as the lethality of the clicker itself, I believe I have come up with the perfect stat block to represent this monster. To begin, the clicker is classified as a medium humanoid with the plant tag, and it is chaotic evil as it has really no moral bounds. It sort of just does whatever it wants to survive. Its armor class is 15, representative of the chitinous plates that cover its body after infection, which are typically very difficult to get through with conventional weaponry. Its average hit point value is 70 or 12d10 hit dice. It has a moving speed of 30 feet, typical of most humanoids, and it has a climbing speed of 20 feet as it can get around up surfaces, but it does take a little bit longer. For its stat array, the clicker has a 17 strength score to represent the strength it gets when the humanoid has been infected and turned. Its dexterity is 8 as it cannot see and as such cannot make super quick reflexive actions. Its constitution score is 18 to represent the sturdiness and overall survivability of the creature after infection. Its intelligence score is 8 to represent its single-mindedness of looking for only food and to infect others. Its wisdom score is 14 as it has a knack for perceiving others through echolocation, through perception. And charisma is seemingly the neutral stat at 10. It has advantage on strength saving throws and has advantage on perception and survival checks, again due to its nature. As stated above, clickers are very, very vulnerable to fire, and as such it has a fire damage vulnerability. It is resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks, as conventional weaponry does find it a bit difficult to get through the armor. And as you might expect, they are immune to poison. And because the clicker cannot see, it is immune to being blinded, and it is also immune to being poisoned. For its senses, it has blind sight of 5 feet, meaning that it can only really see you if you are immediately in front of it within melee range. But it is completely blind beyond this radius. It, however, does have tremor sense of 30 feet, which will also be talked about in its abilities, and it has a passive perception of 15. It speaks no languages and is marked as a challenge rating of 5. Moving on to the abilities, the main ability the clicker has is echolocation.
NANI?
Any creature that moves at full speed within 30 feet of the clicker must make a contested dexterity stealth check versus the clicker's wisdom perception check. On a failure, the clicker knows the target's location until the end of its next turn, at which point the clicker loses the target's location if the target is more than 30 feet away. This is all passive, and once per turn as a bonus action, the clicker can let out an unnerving shriek of clicking sounds in order to detect other creatures. All creatures within 30 feet of the clicker and not behind cover are immediately detected and have their locations revealed until the end of the clicker's next turn. At which point the clicker then loses the location of all creatures that are more than 30 feet away. I feel like this ability translates very well into the game of D&D as using Blind Sight or Tremor Sense in a different way. For its actions, it has 2 different attacks. The first one being Swipe, which is a melee attack, +6 to hit with a 5-foot reach of only one target, and it deals 8 or 2d6 + 3 slashing damage. And on a hit, the target becomes grappled, escape DC 15, and must make a DC 16 Constitution saving throw or become infected. Infected being the new mechanic that it is introduced here. While infected, a creature has 24 hours since the time of infection to be cured with magic such as Lesser Restoration or similar magic. After 24 hours, an infected creature may only be cured with magic such as Greater Restoration or similar. And after the first 24 hours of infection, the infected creature has 1d6 days to cure its infection or die. After which the creature resurrects as another clicker if it's humanoid, medium, or a bloater, large, after 24 hours. Now, while in the game's lore, it does state that typically infected start off as runners, which is the first stage of infection after death. However, I do believe that the sense of urgency should be translated a bit more quicker in the game of D&D. So while clickers typically take 1 year to form after death, the time period has just been shortened to, again, add that sense of urgency. For its second attack, it is the Bite attack, which is melee, and it can only be used on a grappled creature, meaning any creature it has grappled or that some other creature has grappled. +6 to hit, reach of 5 feet on one target, and it does 12 or 3d8 piercing damage. And on a hit, the target must make a DC 16 Constitution saving throw or become infected. However, the target has disadvantage on this save if it was hit by the bite, as the bites are typically what create more infected more than just scratches. Scratches usually in the game are tourniqueted or the limbs are cut off, but bites are usually lethal at first contact. Now, typically you would see these creatures located in underground, very humid areas or housing or someplace that really doesn't get a lot of ventilation. So you might be able to include these creatures in some sort of Underdark campaign, and you might even be able to make an entire campaign around the infection mechanic introduced in this stat block if you'd like. But the point of making this creature in this way was to transfer over the extreme lethality of the clicker in the game over to D&D, as it should be approached with extreme caution when going into a clicker's environment, as not being careful with one of these can turn deadly very quickly. So that is how I would create the clicker from The Last of Us in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. This was honestly a blast to make, and I am excited to make a lot more of these for you guys. If you guys have any suggestions for how this stat block could be improved, let me know in the comments down below. Or if you have any ideas of what series I should include creatures from next, let me know in the comments as well, guys. But for now, guys, enjoy this clicker stat block. I will put a link to it in the description down below, so go check that out. Have fun with it, guys, and until next time, happy gaming.